And Ruby, when did you come to our Fair Valley?
In June of 1911, and we came right to Nelson.
So you were born then
in Goulburn, England, Goulburn, Lancashire.
Lancashire, yes.
Not far from Wigan.
Not far from where?
5 miles from Wigan.
Wigan, no. That doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
We've got a little bigger city.
It might to a Lancashire lass.
Oh, it might. Well, there may be a lot of those out in our audience.
Yeah.
So, and your parents then came to Canada?
My father came the year ahead of us.
Yes. And what was his, why would he choose Canada to come to?
Well, hard times was coming in England just at that time. And Dad feared for his job because he was deaf. And he was afraid he wouldn't get, he'd have a hard time getting work if he got laid off. He was, he did something to the wheels of engines. They made engines, it was called the Vulcan something or other.
So he would have been, what, a mechanic or mechanically inclined or an engineer?
So he got a notion to come to Canada. Mm-hmm. You know, they're always telling what a beautiful country it is and how many attractions you got, and you make your fortune overnight, and you know.
Sounded pretty good. Yeah.
And he broke his journey. He came and he left England in July 1910. And he broke his journey at Winnipeg. And then he worked his way always west. And he says, I was a cookie tester in all the camps. I guess he had a good appetite.
Yes.
And he was a cook's helper.
Yes.
In most of them. But he finally got to Nelson in November. And after school, a few small jobs like working for the brick in the brickyard down Fairview, working for Burns, and cleaning up the railway cars in, you know, the
coaches part?
No, not the coaches. Say where the
express and the freight and that?
Yeah, freight cars. Mm-hmm. That was what he got first. And then he got on steady in cleaning coaches and things like that. He worked his way up. He worked there for 35 years. And he was mending air brakes when he left.
Oh, yeah.
When he retired. So he lived to be 90.
90, yeah. So then you and your mother and family followed afterwards?
Oh, yes. We came in June of 1911. And coming across the country on the train was the day King George was crowned. I think it was King George. It was
King George the Fifth, that would be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And every time we got to a big city, we'd see school children parading, and they'd come in and they'd give you a brooch and a flag or something.
Yeah.
Oh, it was an exciting day, that one. And my brothers and I, that was something nice. There was other young people on too.
So then you came to, how old did you say you were when you came to Nelson?
I was 7.
You were 7.
My oldest brother was 5.
So did you?
Yeah, 5, and the young one 3.
So you lived right in Nelson then? Your schooling was in Nelson? Can you recall the schools? And
we always went to the Central School.
Central School. Would that be the only one at that time?
No. There was a one-room schoolhouse. I was looking at my junk only this morning. One-room schoolhouse in Fairview at Hume School.
Oh, yes.
And a couple of years before, a few years before we came, before that, it had been just kind of a very poor wooden building, and I think one part of it was brick because when they built the new school, they added that part on.
Oh.
The others were destroyed.
And that eventually
and that was
became...
in 1908.
That eventually became Hume School then, did it?
No, that was called Central School.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And that's the school I went to.
Yeah.
And
well,
it had,
go ahead.
no, it doesn't look anything like it. It had a nice, well, what you call houses like this?
With a gable or?
Gable.
Yes.
And it played games on the top floor. And it was the cooking school class
Yes.
was on the third floor, and the lunchroom for those who lived too far away to come home from school at noon. And then they all went down. I'm speaking now of later times. Went down a fire escape onto the boys' side, but we weren't, and girls weren't allowed on the boys' side. So we had to get off as quickly as we could. And the boys were all waiting for us with the snowballs.
They used to separate. I'd forgotten that. They used to separate the schools, didn't they?
Yes.
They separate the areas.
Yeah,
There was the boys' area and the girls' area.
And then there was a Catholic school, and it was, part of it was a boarding school for girls.
Oh, yes.
But they had day pupils too, both boys and girls.
So then, were you interested in music at all? Because they did have, I understand there was a symphony orchestra here at one time, around 1914
yes,
or somewhere.
I love music, but Mother used to sing to us and that. But, and she used to read a lot to us, and she had a beautiful voice for reading.
For reading, yes. It's a thing we don't hear too much of anymore, isn't it?
No, but the words came alive as she told it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mother, it's bedtime, bedtime. Oh, Mother, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. And sometimes she would give in to us and accept a little more. But she really was a beautiful reader. She was a beautiful writer, too.
Oh, yeah.
Her
The handwriting.
I never could write like that. It was just like a picture.
Yes. Well, you have other talents, too. Well,
We lived 3.5 years on Hoover Street, 310 Hoover Street.
Oh, yes.
And there were some Lancashire girls lived in a little cabin with their father and mother, right near the Smelter.
Oh,
On Smelter,
yes,
you know,
yes.
on what they call Smelter Flats. There were other little cabins there too, until the fire. And we were still living on Hoover Street when the Smelter burned down.
Oh, yes. That must have been
That
something you could
was-
see all over town, I expect.
Oh, Mother let us up and let us stand on the veranda, as long as we didn't go off the veranda. But the bells began to ring, fire bells began to ring, and the people began to run and shout, and the CPR whistles were blowing. Then the fire bell was ringing, the church bells were ringing, and that was some night.
Was that at night by any chance?
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night.
Yes.
I guess
And
there.
everybody was shouting, "The firebug is at it again! The firebug is at it again!" And the carts, some would come in horses and carts, and some on horseback, some on their feet. But and it was just as light as day, and sparks were flying. Dad was working that night, and the man that lived next door to us, an Italian man who worked at the same with Dad. He turned the hose on his house for the so the sparks didn't set fire, and so he watered our house too.
Oh yes, yes.
But oh, it was an exciting night.
So.
And then there was nothing left. We went after school. Next day we went to see it. Nothing left but 2 huge chimneys.
Isn't it?
It's really flattened out.
So then you became a teenager then, and then a young lady. Did you have a lot of young ladies didn't work in those days. They.
Well, I wasn't a young lady. I belonged to the working class.
So what?
Lots of babies came into our house.
What did you occupy yourself? How did you occupy yourself then?
Well, I just had to help Mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had a baby on my back.
You mean in your family or?
Yeah, in my own family.
You had lots of brothers and sisters?
You go out to play now. Take Evelyn with you. Or take somebody with you. And take care of them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one time, this is when we still lived on Hoover Street. Mother put my sister in the buggy, and she says, if she cries, bring her home. Well, I went to the Smelter flats where three of my chums lived, and we had a grandest time. Those girls thought they had a living doll, and I think my sister liked it too. She never cried. She told me if she cried, bring her home. So the time went on, Then I saw my Uncle Sim coming down towards the bridge, and my feet got slower and slower. And he grabbed the baby from me and ran home ahead of me. And I got a spanking that night. And I never deserved it, because if she had told me, that 3 o'clock was the feeding time, bring her home, I would have taken her home. But she said, if she cries, bring her home. But she was having too good a time.
She never cried.
The little girls thought, you got a live doll.
You were telling me the other morning about the streets in Nelson in those days. When
yes.
you walked down the streets.
They were great big wide streets, and sometimes there'd be cracks in it, and you'd drop your pennies down.
Down
By the time you got to the shop to buy the things your mother wanted, you'd lost half of it. Sometimes people would be kind and get a crowbar and pry the sidewalk up and get it for you. And sometimes it was, there was enough space underneath the sidewalk for you to crawl under yourself. And other times, well, perhaps 3 girls would be walking together. One would step on the wrong end of the plank that was loose, and the board would go up, and the next one would get her toe under it, and the third one would get her would step on it, and you'd be stuck. It hurt.
They played little games like that then.
That was no game.
That hurt.
But, I'll have to tell you about playing around the streetcar barns. The streetcar barns there's a garage there now, and one house is gone. And all the children gathered around. They call it Crossroads now, I think.
Gosh, I don't know. I can't.
It's
I
the
don't,
corner of Hall Mines Road and Kootenay Street
oh, there.
and
yes.
Hoover Street.
Yes.
They do,
Oh,
it
I
is
know
a,
where you mean,
it-
yes.
It is a kind of a crossroad,
Yes,
all right.
yes.
But the teenage boys was very good to us youngsters, and they allowed us to play. We played run, sheep, run, kick the bucket. Don't know what else. All kinds of games.
We were talking one night about the old games, the old games that children played. Run, sheep, run, I think, was played all over Canada,
Yes.
probably.
Run, sheep, run, kick the bucket, kick
Didn't
the
it?
can.
Kick the can was one, yes.
Oh, there was quite a few games. And there was next to the skating rink. The skating rink was built where there's a motel there now. Just as you come across the bridge, the motel. That was a big dam where the city used to get their first electricity.
Oh,
And
yes.
they hadn't used it, and there was a hole underneath the highest part. Big boys used to die there from this cribbage, but we younger ones had to keep nearer the shore. But we had lots of fun.
That would be a reservoir, I guess, would be
Yeah,
for the
that
city
wasn't
water.
used anymore, you see.
Oh, I see.
And sometimes they'd be skating on it in the winter.
Yes.
And the skating rink was just above it, where this motel is now.
And that's at the Hall Mines, at that crossroads.
It was on Hall
there.
Mines Road. And no, it's past the crossroad, not very far from the
Yes.
crossroad. And they used to play hockey, and whenever there was a game on, the city band played for them while they were playing. And we kids couldn't afford tickets, so we'd be peeping in through the open door. And Mr. McQuaig was the caretaker, and when it got just a little bit, almost to the end of the game, he'd open the doors and let us in. He had a big family too,
Yeah.
so he
Take pity on you.
favored the kids. And in the middle, every winter, there was a carnival, a skating carnival. And everybody went with dressed up,
Get costumes.
and there'd be races, and there'd be a march past when the judges picked out the best ones. And
You made your own fun.
yes,
Yeah. And it was fun, I think, wasn't it?
yes, I think
was
that's
good
what you
times.
would call it.
Yes. No
And,
coaches or nobody telling you what to do. You just, everybody went out and had a
Yeah.
good time.
But the boys were the ones that made the fun for the little ones, because the girls didn't want us. But the boys were good to us. Oh, next to the skating rink was a cottage. They called it the old brewery. And every time any of the boys hid in that old brewery, they always got home free.
This was when you're playing kick the can.
But
yes.
I said, well, I think I'll go in next time. And he'd look at me and he'd say, you better not. It's dark in there. There's lots of snakes. So the little kids never went in there. But it was fun. Oh, and then the horses, with clip clop on Baker Street, especially where uh, Baker Street went across Ward Street,
Oh, yeah.
and it was hollow underneath.
Oh, that's where
It
the
was
creek
just
runs
like
under.
walking on a corduroy bridge,
Yeah.
you see. And only there was lots of earth on it, but
Yes.
you could still
There'd be the
kind of
different sound.
hear
Yeah.
the different sounds of
Do-
horses' feet.
Was that ever open when, was the creek there open when you were first here? Or it's
No,
always had
the
the road
street
on
was
it?
built before I
Always,
came.
yeah.
But, and then the Salvation Army, there was the Madden Hotel where, on the corner of Baker and Ward. And one part of their hotel was rented, I imagine, to the CPR ticket office. And they had a telegraph in it.
Yes.
And years later, it interfered with the telegraph. The Salvation Army used to
yes.
have a Saturday night, they'd
Oh.
have open air
They,
meetings in the
yeah.
corner. And Dad often took us on Saturday night, and he always walked across the street and listened from the other end of the street. I wanted to get closer, but no, Dad wouldn't go closer. And then he took us to Beans. That was the name of the place, of the people, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was an ice cream parlor, and he would take us in there, and we'd all get a dish of ice cream, and they always had these little ice cream cookies, you know. I don't know why Dad didn't take us in there. It was always to Beans.
Well,
And that was going down towards the post office. The city hall was the post office in those days.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
And Ward Street it's been built where Ward Creek ran, and there was a big gully, and it's still quite open underneath there, they tell us. And it's like what did they have in Italy in the Bible times? You know, when the disciples and all the believers in Christ had to hide for their lives.
Oh, yeah.
I got it almost.
I don't think I can help you. I don't know what. Oh, the catacombs.
Catacombs.
Yeah.
I had my cut in the wrong place.
Yes. Oh, that's well.
They say that
Occasionally, the road.
the Hoover Hotel is like that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of stories.
That you can
still
look underneath.
down there. It must be awfully funny to go down there.
It's hard to believe, actually, because there's paved road over it now. It's really hard to believe there's a. But that'd be interesting. When the horses went across, you'd hear the hollow sound.
Yeah, you did also. And in the summer, you'd be shoe deep in dust. And then in the fall, it'd be mud.
So,
there was about 3 hotels on every block, I think. And every one of them had not only a beer parlor, it was a full, oh dear.
like a lounge?
Take a man to tell us that one.
Yes. Well, we'll leave that for another time. You married here then, did you?
Yes, but I didn't marry until I was 47.
Mm-hmm.
I married a widower
Yes.
with 3 children. They were all married too.
Yes.
And some of them are in Nelson today, some of the grandchildren.
Oh, yeah.
My stepdaughter died of cancer almost 4 years ago. But my stepchildren are all so good to me.
Yeah.
I fell in a good hole. Yes, one year, my brother had just been to one of my kid brothers, second youngest. There was 8 of us. At least, there were 7 of us alive. And he got to school in, on the Air Lakes, Deer Park. Do you know Deer Park?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
And we'd only been there a month, but a family with 3 children left. Well, the government won't pay us for a teacher, or wouldn't, I should say, because they don't do it anymore. Pay for a teacher with less than 10 pupils. So I went up there and I took a little girl in my Sunday school class. It wasn't because it was my Sunday school class, but her mother let her come. And then my brother, or somebody, got a boy. He was a boy that none of the teachers could do anything with. So the inspector was taking Carol and I up as far as Shringa Creek. We got on the boat at Shringa Creek. And he said, I'll call him Dick, for I've forgotten his name now. If Dick doesn't behave himself, you tell Harry to send him home. Well, we had him for a while, but one day he heard him sashing me, and he says, I don't care what he does to me or what he says to me, but he's not going to treat you wrong. And I wish we had time to tell you what our little house looked like. It was right on the beach. It got the wind from the north, the wind from the south, and it come through inside. We got water from a little well. I think it was only seepage water. It's whether we didn't kill ourselves.
Well, I'm going to thank you very much, Mrs. Woods, for your interesting stories. And I know you've got lots more to tell, and maybe we can do this another time. Thank you very much.
I hope I haven't talked too much.